7 News at noon.
Breaking news from Concord officials. They are now confirming the severe storm that ripped through early this morning was, in fact, a tornado. The winds as strong as 100 miles per hour. Welcome to 7 News at noon, everybody. I'm Sarah French.
And I'm Ryan Schulteis. People in Concord still trying to clean up after that tornado tore through there, leaving trees down. Many residents there without power. Our Team 7 coverage begins with Dan Housley, live in Concord. Dan?
Well, the cleanup is going to continue throughout the day. Behind me, just beyond some of the emergency vehicles here, you can see some of the damage. A tree there that was just torn off and twisted. Twisted being the important word here, because National Weather Service officials confirmed, as far as tornadoes go, this one was the real deal. They say that a tornado warning went out about 3 o'clock this morning, and within the next 15 minutes, an EF1 tornado touched down here in Concord. They say it hit the ground near the Cambridge Turnpike and then stayed on the ground for about a half a mile, cutting a path of destruction about 4 football fields wide. They said about 39 houses were damaged in the area, one of them suffering some serious structural damage. But they say it was kind of lucky here. They say a lot of the trees fell between the houses rather than on the houses. But 1,000 houses out here were left without power when a trigger within the Concord power system tripped those houses off. They say many of those houses do have power restored right now, but roads remain blocked. Lexington Road is one of the biggest roads. It remains blocked and likely will for most of the day. Otherwise, some small roads in the area continue to be blocked by the debris. The warning came on people's cell phones in the affected area. The Mass Emergency Management Association, that they say that the system worked. This warning went off at 3 in the morning. Some of the people who reported getting in the path of the tornado say they woke up to 20 seconds of their cell phones wailing. A warning that they may not even know was on their phones. Looking at their phones, they got the tornado warning. One of the people in the affected path talked about hearing the winds, feeling the pressure, and getting into his basement. He says that alarm likely saved him from further danger. The fire chief was among those talking just moments ago. Let's hear what he has to say about what people ought to know and what people ought to do in the near future.
We'll be broadening our attention as we can, but right now the project before us is to open up roads, get the electricity restored, and make the situation safe. There's a lot of areas where, 20 feet up, we've got trees that are broken and dangling. And we've got to work on that. So the message is clearly, if you don't need to go out into your neighborhood, don't do it. Clearly, the electricity has been shut to the affected areas, being the 400, 500 block of Lexington and those other two streets. So there's not an electrical hazard out here right now, but there's a lot of crews working around, and we'll be here for the long hauls.
So the surveying of the damage is what convinced officials that what we had here was a tornado. 3 in the morning, you're not going to see any pictures of what came through. However, the National Weather Service, with help from the fire department, was able to get out there, look at all the damage. He said clearly he could say damage was in a certain direction, but he also saw a lot of damage in the opposite direction, an indication of a tornado. He says also up in the trees, you could see twisted damage, indications of tornadic activity, which showed him this wasn't straight winds. This was an EF1 tornado with winds of up to 100 miles an hour. We're live in Concord. Dan Housley, 7 News.
All right, here's another look at some of the damage left behind by the storm. A huge tree torn from the ground, falling on top of some power lines right next to this house. Crews are now working to try to deal with all the damage. Our Team 7 coverage continues now with 7's Jonathan Hall.
Sarah, this EF1 moved right into Concord and did a whole bunch of damage in a very short amount of time. Take a look, the path of destruction, toppling down trees, ripping up power lines. Sky 7 has the scene over Concord, and you can get a better idea of just how severe the damage is in this neighborhood. You can see massive trees ripped from the ground, roots and all. The National Weather Service confirming the wind speeds up to 100 miles an hour, as Dan Housley reported. Those winds caused heavy damage, and it will be up to the insurance adjusters now to add it all up. No doubt in the millions. Several neighborhoods still in the dark at this hour. Power crews got right to work this morning trying to clear the utility lines. Firefighters say nobody was injured, but the tornado hit overnight while many people were sound asleep. They didn't know what hit them. Those who were awakened described the wild scene.
I heard like lightning and crashing, and so I ran to the other side of the house and through the back, and it had like broken down the porch, and all the trees were sort of falling.
You heard the fire chief say they're in it for the long haul. Crews working in Concord say it's going to be a long, long day of cleanup. Live in the newsroom, I'm Jonathan Hall, 7 News.
Well, those storms moved in fast overnight, waking many people up in the middle of the night.
So let's check in with Chris Lambert now for a look at how strong those storms really were, Chris.
So we have the winds max 100 miles an hour. You had John tell you that. You heard that from the National Weather Service. That puts it at an EF1. The path itself, 400 yards wide at its thickest there, and then the length, half a mile long, and considerable tree damage. And a lot of those trees, or some of them at least, falling on top of the houses. You take a little bit of a closer view of what went on earlier this morning. You back up the radar here just before 3 o'clock in this wall of water. We had a huge line of tropical moisture work in with some showers and storms. There was one cell on the back edge of that started showing the rotation just to the west of Marlborough before 3 o'clock in the morning. That is the storm that produced the tornado into Concord. You can see that cell. This was just before 3 o'clock, 2:52 in the morning, out near 495 at Marlborough. Started showing that indications of rotation where you see some of this brighter red matching up with the brighter green here. In fact, it was enough of a concern that the National Weather Service issued that tornado warning right up 3 o'clock, 3:01 in that neighborhood. Now, that storm started to work off to the east here. This is at 3:09. You see a little bit of a hook towards Sudbury and up into Maynard. That's the portion of the thunderstorm that wound up going over to Concord here. And as this encountered Concord about 3:17, it began to produce enough rotation to put down a tornado. In fact, the National Weather Service estimates that it was right around 3:20 in the morning where this tornado dropped down briefly, but it did enough damage out there with those winds estimated up to 100 miles an hour. And this is the velocity scan right at 3:17, and you can see a lot of these bright reds showing up right around Concord, matching up with the greens. There was a little bit of a tightening there that was good enough to give you the rotation that pushed down to the ground as well. The most significant damage right across Independence Road in that neighborhood. This is Lexington Road right here, and this is Cambridge Turnpike. So you can basically see it's just to the east of the main center of Concord here. That's where you had the most significant damage from this tornado occur. Now, in New England, we get tornadoes occasionally. Of course, the big one just a couple of years ago was the one up in Revere. That was an EF2 with winds estimated near or just over 120 miles an hour. Actually did out a couple of tornadoes last year as well. June 23rd, 2015, there was a brief EF0 Westminster and a brief EF0 in Rentham as well. Now, when we get these reports of tornadoes, the National Weather Service does go out and they survey the damage. And for more on how that works, over to Danielle.
Thanks, Chris. And yeah, all morning the talk was kind of, was this a microburst? Was this a tornado? And assessing the damage really gives a better idea in determining that. So when we have microbursts, the damage pattern is all in the same direction. So what happens, you have a very cooled area of air, and as it comes crashing down and hits the ground, it kind of fans out. And that's why you'll notice this is what the damage looks like with a microburst. The damage kind of expanding as it hits the ground, and all of the trees falling mainly in the same direction. That's an indication of those straight line winds. With a tornado, it's a different story. And as you were hearing Dan Housley, Chris, everyone talk about the damage with this tornado this morning, we had trees going in different directions, and that indicates the rotation that's characteristic of a tornado. And we did indeed have a tornado this morning, an EF1. So we also have the EF scale. What is an EF1 tornado? So that's characteristic of having winds 86 up to 110 miles per hour and moderate damage with that. So we had winds up to 100 miles per hour this morning. So it was even on the stronger side of an EF1. And now, as you know, we've assessed what this is, but now the cleanup continues. And for more on that, back to you guys.
Okay, Concord is not the only town dealing with the early morning storms. Crews also spending much of the morning trying to clean up in Marlborough, where they also experienced some damage there. 7's Chris Anderson has been in Marlborough all morning. He joins us now with the very latest. A busy day out there, I can imagine, Chris.
Yeah, it has been, Ryan. Now, Marlborough didn't see the extent of damage that we saw in Concord, where that tornado has now been confirmed. But it did cause some damage. It was that same storm system that went through Concord that came through here in Marlborough, and it downed some trees and power lines and made quite a mess. The aftermath of a possible tornado in Marlborough. Crews cleaning up debris after a round of severe storms ripped across the area early Monday morning.
About 3 in the morning, and the dog went out of her mind. Just heard a noise, a loud bang, like the house shook, and then the power blew.
That bang was the sound of a 120-foot section of pine tree that came crashing down on Walker Street, blocking the road for about 6 hours.
I didn't know the tree went down. I heard a crash, but I didn't know.
That tree could have hit that house. And I think the wires held it up. I really do.
And experts still don't know if it was a tornado that caused the damage. The National Weather Service is going to look at the affected areas and decide if it was indeed a tornado or straight-line winds.
We have a skylight right over our bed. I thought the skylight was going to collapse on me.
There were no reported injuries or damage to homes, but the falling trees did rip down power lines, leaving thousands of people without electricity. National Grid working throughout the morning to repair the downed wires and had power back on to most residents before 9 o'clock, including neighbors on Walker Street, who feel lucky that no one was hurt.
If that's all the damage it did, I guess we're really lucky.
They are counting their blessings again. The National Weather Service said it was going to go out and investigate both in Concord and here in Marlboro to determine if it was indeed a tornado that came through. We already know that it was that EF1 tornado that ripped through Concord, so it's yet to be determined if that was indeed the same problem here in Marlboro. But we do know it did cause some damage, so not at the extent of what we're seeing there in Concord. That's the latest live here in Marlboro. Chris Anderson, 7 News.
Stay with 7 News for continuing coverage of the tornado in Concord. We have crews covering the cleanup effort and will bring you any updates throughout the day.
We're also following breaking news out of Milton, where a man is under arrest after state police say he placed a pen camera inside a DCR staff bathroom. Now, police say he's a park ranger and set up a camera with the intention of videotaping women using the bathroom at the Houghton's Pond bathhouse. A DCR employee found the camera and then turned it over to police. The suspect is charged with multiple counts of secretly videotaping people and violating wiretap laws.
More breaking news now at noon. The city of Somerville no longer pursuing its appeal of the Wynn Casino. The mayor of Somerville says it's because they've resolved many of the community's concerns. This includes the reduced length of the casino's license from 85 to 50 years and the use of a ferry, which will reduce road traffic. The $2 billion casino is set to open in 2019 and will sit on 37 acres.
Also breaking right now, a federal judge in Texas blocking a ruling by the Obama administration. Back in May, that government said transgender students must be allowed to use bathrooms and locker rooms consistent with their chosen identity. But the Texas judge is now saying students must use bathrooms consistent with the sex on their birth certificate to help protect the state and schools. 12 other states have challenged the president's ruling, calling that unconstitutional.
More breaking news now. The fallout continues today for U.S. swimmer Ryan Lochte. Speedo becoming the first major company to drop its sponsorship of Lochte. This as Ryan Lochte opens up to Matt Lauer regarding his fabricated robbery claim in Rio. The 32-year-old initially said he and his teammates were robbed at gunpoint, but Brazilian police say the swimmers vandalized a gas station bathroom and then their guards confronted them about it moments later.
That's why I'm taking full responsibility for it, is because I over-exaggerated that story. And if I never done that, we wouldn't be in this mess. Well, I'm embarrassed for myself, my family, especially those guys, USA Swimming, the whole Olympic Games, everyone watching.
Now, the IOC and USA Swimming will determine whether the swimmers will face fines and/or suspensions.
2 women arrested in Quincy. Police say they mugged a nun as she walked down the street Sunday afternoon, stealing her rosary beads. The 2 women are also believed to be involved with the break-in around the same time.
Coming up on 7 News at noon, we continue to follow this breaking news out of Concord. A tornado hitting the town overnight. Wind speeds reaching up to 100 miles per hour. Lots of trees down, power lines down as well.
Quite the wild early morning. We've gone from a tornado to now almost complete sunshine and lowering humidity and a taste of fall tonight. Take a look at the numbers coming up.